just got Melody Farris's mugshot moments ago. She was booked into the Cherokee County Detention Center in Georgia. You're looking at it right there. That's her mugshot. The last hour, a jury found her guilty of killing her husband, Gary Farris. Melody, of course, faces life in prison when she is sentenced. We don't have a date for that just yet. And I want to remind you, we're also just minutes away from a live news conference will come after the guilty verdict. We are expecting the Cherokee County District Attorney, the Assistant District Attorneys who tried the case, and we may also hear from Gary Farris's family as well. We're going to bring that to you as soon as it begins. Word from our producer on the ground is that it will be beginning shortly. So keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn back now to the burn pile murder trial of Melody Farris. Now, we are, as we've told you, awaiting a news conference with the prosecution team. And, of course, that is expected to go at about 5:30 or so. We'll bring it to you as soon as it begins. Just a couple of hours ago, the jury reached its verdict.
We, the jury, as the count 5, we find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 4, find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 3, we find the defendant guilty. We, the jury, as to count 2, find the defendant guilty. And we, the jury, as to count 1, find the defendant guilty.
All right, so those counts were malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, which was the underlying felony in that felony murder, concealing the death of another, and making false statements. Farris, she actually sat down stunned. She put her hands to her face after that verdict was read. We were told by Matt Johnson, who was sitting just behind her 2 sons, that Scott, remember, he testified against her. He was in tears as he listened to the decision by the jury. Farris then took off her earrings. She handed them over to her attorney before being taken into custody. She was then handcuffed, and then led out of the courtroom and taken to the Cherokee County Detention Center to be booked. No date has been set for that sentencing. We're hearing it could happen sometime next month or so. And just a little while ago, we showed you that mugshot that was actually taken of her now. Just incredible stuff. Just the drama. Unbelievable. There it is, that mugshot of her in the Cherokee County Detention Center. No pearls in that shot, I'll tell you that. All right, still with us, criminal defense attorney Laura Yaretzi. And Laura, I want to get your reaction to that verdict today. It came after the jury came back and told the judge that they were deadlocked. A couple of hours later, they went back. He gave them the Allen charge. They came back with that guilty verdict. I want to get your reaction.
That's one of the reasons why defense lawyers don't like the Allen charge, because you kind of push the jury that's deadlocked into a decision. And sometimes people are pressured as a result, right? Because they want to, they're being sent back. They think, you know what, I'm not going to be out of this jury service until there's a verdict of some sort, because the judge is sending us back. And hence the reason most lawyers, defense lawyers, don't like it. Once the jury comes back and says they're deadlocked, we want it to be over right there and then and get our mistrial. Am I surprised? Not necessarily. I mean, we had a mother and a son kind of pointing the finger at one another in this case, and it was one or the other. The defense never raised the possibility of an outsider being the culprit, which to me was a little surprising. I mean, it was a huge property. I forget how many acres it was, and anyone could have been there. Someone may have done it and no one would have known. It just, to me, Amanda, the daughter's testimony was, I thought, was helpful to Melody, but clearly wasn't enough to save her. And now we've got a mother and we've got a son who's crying. The one who testified against her was crying because she was found guilty. It's tragic, whichever way you look at it.
Yeah, it's tragic all the way around. And looking back at it now, she didn't take the stand to testify in her own defense. We talked a lot about that here on the show, whether she should or not. I thought there was plenty of reasonable doubt in this case. So my opinion was, if I was advising her, I would have advised her not to take the stand, which she did not do. Do you think in hindsight that was a mistake?
who knows, right? It's easy to say things in hindsight, but as a criminal defense attorney, especially when there's reasonable doubt, I mean, there was enough there for reasonable doubt. There was enough to point, to say that, or to think at least, or a reasonable person may have thought that the son was the one who did it, right? How would she have been able to get the body of someone who weighs 300 pounds and she weighed only 120 pounds? How she would get that body to the fire was, not something that anyone can imagine. And the defense lawyer put on the show showing that to the jury, and that in itself should have been enough for reasonable doubt. Clearly it wasn't. I don't necessarily know or think that her testimony would have made a difference. I mean, this jury clearly made up its mind despite the fact that I thought that there was reasonable doubt here.
Yeah, and that mystery of how Gary got on that burn pile, that's just something we're never going to know. A lot of people online just felt like, look, she was the one at the property. They felt that the state proved she was the only one with the means, motive, and opportunity. He was dead. She was guilty of it. That's kind of where they were. They didn't care as much about how the logistics went down. I know a lot of people focused on it, but a lot of viewers didn't. I'd say it was about 75-25 in that sense. This case was also odd in the fact that, again, children of the defendant testified against her. One of them was Chris, and he testified here. I want to listen to some of his testimony. He talked about the fact that Melody expressed the fact, or at least in his opinion, Melody was sort of in this position where she couldn't wait for Gary to die. Let's take a listen.
Did you ever see your mother get upset with your dad?
Quite a few times.
Was there an incident with seeing your mom break a plate?
Yes. I've tried my best to remember the exact date. I know it was prior to his death. It wasn't really, I don't want to say it was several months, but it was within a few weeks or so.
All right, I want to cut off that tape that we were playing for you because, as you can see, things are moving out there in Georgia, Cherokee County. They're ready to begin that press conference. Looks like they're all beginning to line up there behind the podium. See the prosecutor there, actually both prosecutors. Let's go in.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Susan Treadaway. I'm the District Attorney for Cherokee County. We're here today to announce that a jury has returned a verdict of guilty against Melody Walker Farris for the murder of her husband, Gary Wayne Farris. This was a 5-count indictment, and the defendant now stands convicted of all 5 counts in that indictment. Standing with me are Chief Assistant District Attorney Katie Gropper, Chief Investigator Brandon Owens, and the trial team, the prosecution team that led this case, starting with lead prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Megan Frankish, Deputy Assistant District Attorney Jeffrey Fogus, Investigator Monica Moore, Victim Advocate Giselle Villanueva, and Assistant Chief Investigator William Hagwood. Also joining us here are Cherokee County Sheriff Frank Reynolds, his Chief Deputy Tommy Pinion, and lead case investigator Sergeant Daniel Hayes. Present from the Farris family, our brother John Farris, his wife Nancy Farris, and sons Chris and Scott Farris. This case originated on July 5th, 2018, when Cherokee County 911 received a call that a man had been found on a burn pile located on residential property in a rural portion of Cherokee County. It was later learned that the victim, 58-year-old Gary Farris, had started a fire on his property days before. An initial theory suggested a possible medical emergency or accidental death. During its investigation, the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office uncovered signs of foul play, including a bullet lodged in Mr. Farris's rib cage and a spent bullet found inside the home. These findings, along with other evidence, led to the arrest and indictment of the victim's wife, Melody Farris, on charges of malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, concealing the death of another, and making a false statement. The evidence in this case required a tremendous amount of law enforcement resources, in addition to extensive forensic testing and analysis. I would like to formally recognize Sheriff Reynolds, GBI Director Chris Hosey, and their respective agencies for their commitment to seeking justice for Gary Farris. I would also like to recognize the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation for their assistance, as well as the Cherokee County Coroner's Office, the Marshal's Office, and the Fire Department. This jury trial took place over the course of 18 days, beginning on October 7th and ending with closing arguments on October 30th. During the trial, the state called 36 witnesses and introduced over 1,200 pieces of evidence. After just over 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on all charges. Under Georgia law, the crime of murder carries a minimum sentence of life in prison. Melody Farris has now been remanded to custody, and Superior Court Judge David L. Cannon will schedule sentencing for a later date. Let us never forget the reason that we are all here today. In July 2018, a horrific murder occurred in our community. A man was shot and left on a burn pile, his body desecrated. The shocking facts and images of this case will forever remain with first responders, law enforcement officers, prosecutors, jurors, and all who have followed this case. Gary did not deserve to die in this manner. He was a loving brother, father, and grandfather, a respected attorney, and a beloved member of our community. He is deeply missed. We thank the jury for their service, for their careful deliberation, and the verdict that they have reached. May this verdict bring some comfort for those who knew and loved Gary Farris. John Farris will now read a statement on behalf of the family. Immediately following, the prosecution team and lead investigator will answer a few questions.
Thank you, Ms. Treadaway, and good evening. As Ms. Treadaway said, I'm John Farris, and Gary was my brother, and his kids have asked me to make a statement for the family, and I'm honored to do so. Over 6 years ago, our family's lives were changed forever when we learned that Gary had been shot and left on a fire pit to be burned. While we have been anticipating this verdict for a long time and are pleased with the jury's decision, we struggle with mixed emotions. Melody has been a part of our lives for over 40 years. Gary's children have not only lost a loving father, but now they have lost their mother. However, with the work of this prosecution team and this jury, we can say that justice has been served today. With this verdict, we hope to have some closure to a terrible chapter in our lives. We also hope to honor Gary as we move forward and pick up the pieces of our fractured family. We are so grateful to the investigators and the prosecution team for the tireless hours that they have invested in the pursuit of justice for Gary. Megan, Jeffrey, and Detectives Hayes, Pope, and Kuykendall, and everybody else that was involved, we are forever indebted to you. The citizens of Cherokee County are indeed lucky to have these people in their service. We appreciate the jury members for devoting a month of their lives to help close this case. We also have an extensive network of family and friends that have provided their support and prayers throughout this ordeal, and we want to thank each of you for being there for us. Your support has been invaluable to us. The grief we feel for our beloved father, brother, and friend is insurmountable, but due to today's verdict, we can proceed in our efforts to celebrate Gary and all that he meant to us. Thank you.
All right, still a lot more to come. We do have to take a break. We'll hit the pause button. We'll make sure you hear it all. Again, that was John Farris, the brother of the victim, Gary Farris, speaking on behalf of the family, thanking everyone, and hoping that this verdict can bring the family closure. We'll have more when we come back. Keep it here on Court TV.
Mr. Jeffrey, tell me what happened that night.
Killed my wife, I guess. I don't remember none of that.
You don't remember the fight with Lisa?
How many times did you hit her?
5.
You don't remember what her dead body looked like laying out there in front of you?
Not at all.
If you were me, would you believe you?
Interview with a Killer. Sunday, 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
All right, folks, we want to get you right back to that news conference happening now in Georgia after a jury found Melody Farris guilty on all counts in the murder of her husband, prominent Atlanta attorney Gary Farris. So let's go back to that news conference. Speaking, Susan Treadway, the Cherokee County District Attorney.
Do you have a few questions for the trial team? Do you have any questions?
Sure. It's Ryan Smith with CBS 48 Hours. In this particular case, why was it so important seek justice over the course of months, years. I know it wasn't easy, but you guys really worked quite hard. I mean, what was that process like? And the verdict today, what does it mean to you personally after hearing the word guilty?
That's a loaded question. It was a very strenuous. Sure. It was a long process, very strenuous. There were terabytes and reports and a mountain of evidence to go through. And we're just grateful that the jury did a diligent effort in going through that evidence and coming to the right verdict.
What were your thoughts when the jury looked like they were deadlocked?
You want to take that?
We asked the jury in the beginning to take their time. Going back to your question, murder cases are tough because you're dealing with the weight and glory of a life that's been taken and taken in such a manner. We did not think anything about it. It's the process. The procedure and the process works itself out. We had confidence in the jury. We had confidence in the facts, and we had confidence in the law. The fact that they were deliberate, that they were tenacious in going through all the evidence and looking at everything just reinforces that the verdict is true, and the verdict did speak the truth.
Keith Greenberg with Dateline. And either the prosecution could answer this or the detectives. Your work is done on this case, but the family is in the room over here. Now their work begins. From your vast experience, what recommendations do you give them to help this process move easier?
Well, I can answer that. I think they just need to take it one day at a time. It's taken 6 years to get to this point. It's going to take a lifetime of healing. And looking at the family now, I know they're behind the camera, but just looking to the family and knowing what they've all been through, this is the beginning of another process for you. And of course, you know we're behind you all the way, and we support the family. We are here for the family. Any resources we can offer to them, and we certainly hope that this step in the process is a step towards healing for your family. We're very sorry for your loss.
In today's verdict, what message does it send to the citizens of Cherokee County?
Hayes, why don't you take that one?
I think, you know, the verdict sends a message that we're here to work for you, and we won't stop until, you know, the outcome that we're seeking is done. This entire team, the sheriff's office, from the beginning, and all the law enforcement officers, we never stopped. You know, this case went through COVID. It went through a lot of difficult times.